Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you might be listening to this, thank you so much for clicking on the show. I am your host, Don Kleppen. And if it's your first time checking out the Cannabis Man podcast, really appreciate you clicking and joining and taking a listen to the show. I am a broadcaster in Chicago. I do news on WGN Radio. I do traffic for iHeartMedia. You can hear me all over Chicago radio. And a few years ago, I started this podcast because once Illinois legalized cannabis, medically and recreationally, and as other states have done so as well, I wanted to start chronicling the journey and doing whatever I could to start changing the conversation around cannabis. I think cannabis can offer a lot of people quality of life improvements. It can help fight some negative symptoms that some of us go through. Whatever your situation might be, there's a lot of unpleasantness that can come from the human condition just existing on this earth every day like we do, and the stresses of life, the struggles we all face. I think cannabis can offer people a lot of relief from that in different ways, and I don't believe that everyone who can benefit from it knows that or understands that, and so that's kind of my motivation for starting this podcast. And every week, I try and bring to you an expert interview, somebody who's in the space, whether it might be an entrepreneur innovating, making new products and experiences for all of us to enjoy in the cannabis space, or if they're politicians, legal or appointed leaders who are now responsible for coming up with policies and the foundations of what legal cannabis looks like in the country at large, but at least in the states that have legalized it thus far. I also like talking with doctors and researchers who are looking to answer the questions we still have about cannabis, and sometimes media members as well, people who cover the space kind of like I do, just kind of getting some stories out there and bringing them to you. And I have one such interview today. There's been a lot of excitement brewing this last week or two. Obviously, we have the Super Bowl this weekend, and that has become a de facto holiday here in America, a kind of holiday of indulgence. A lot like Thanksgiving, I think people build their day around the snacks or the meal, as well as the game itself and the commercials, the halftime show. It's all become such a major spectacle and a point of the calendar that I think many people look forward to throughout the year. And excitingly, one of Illinois' very own cannabis companies partnered with a restaurant group, and they've created a THC-infused buffalo wing sauce. Sounds so delicious, and I really can't wait to try it. That would be Cresco Labs, and their Good News brand specifically. They partnered with the 50/50 restaurant group, a group that regularly wins awards for its wings and sauces. I'm a big fan of 50/50, and I think this partnership between Cresco and them is wonderful. And so I'm speaking with Jason Erkes later today in the show, and he kind of tells the story about how this partnership came about and where you can pick up some of this sauce ahead of the big game. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow the show at C-Man Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and share the show with anybody you know who you think might like it. It's the Cannabis Man Podcast page on Facebook, and leave a rating or review for the show. However you're listening to this, whatever podcast platform, if it's YouTube, if it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or iHeart, however you're listening to the show, there's a function there if you scroll down to leave a rating or a review for the podcast. And if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you wouldn't mind. Whatever you think of the show, those ratings and reviews help me stand out from the other podcasts out there and encourage other listeners to give it a shot. And I'd love it if you become a subscriber to the Cannabis Man Podcast. You scroll down to the link in the description notes and click on that support the show link. It'll take you to a Buzzsprout subscription page, and you become a subscriber. You'll get a big thank you email from me, as well as a shout out in the shows thereafter, because subscribers and supporters are what allows me to keep doing this show. And I'm very thankful every time I step in front of this mic and I'm going through the preparations throughout the week, and I'm conducting these interviews, and I'm finding stories to bring to you. I'm really just so thankful that I get to do this and that you are listening. So thank you so much for that. And without further ado, let's get into this episode of the Cannabis Man Podcast.
This is Tommy Chong, and you're listening to the Cannabis broadcast.
And we are back. I got to tell you, listener, if you haven't listened to any recent episodes, I went through a dry January, a kind of modified version that I myself took on. I went without any cannabis, no alcohol, no caffeine, no added sugars, and no meat for the month of January. I don't know if I mentioned this on the show, but I dropped about 12 pounds. My sleep was really, really high quality. I did still, and I've mentioned this, I kind of went into more detail in recent episodes, so if you're interested in that whole tea break thing, check out some of the recent episodes I've done. But I kind of spelled out a lot of the issues that I faced. One of the top ones for me was getting to sleep at night. I was leaning on things like chamomile tea, meditation, exercise, things like that to kind of help me wind down. But honestly, sleeping and getting to sleep is one of the big things that turned me toward cannabis in the first place in my life. And so going the whole month without it, most nights I was able to get down just fine, but there were a handful of nights in January where I really struggled with it. And I've got to say, I've really been enjoying getting back into utilizing cannabis. It's been a wonderful week since I last talked with you. My wife and I had a great weekend last weekend. We went out around Chicago. We were doing the end of restaurant week. We had lunch at the Palm on Saturday in the Swiss Hotel, had a nice steak salad. I smoked a little before that. It tasted fantastic. And then I went with my brother Danny and my cousin Zach. We went to this Topgolf swing suite in the Chicago Athletic Association Hotel. Really enjoyed doing that. I'm not a big fan of golf simulators, but sometimes just getting some swings in the winter months helps a lot come next season. And then Gretchen and I went to Gene and Georgetti for lunch the next day. We went to the Chicago Roastery of Starbucks on Michigan Avenue for some breakfast. I had my first latte there. I had kind of like a toffee cream latte, which was delicious, and some smoked salmon on brioche. Definitely not something that I do regularly, but it was an indulgence that I felt was worth it. It was a great way to come back from the dry month with no caffeine, and I've definitely been feeling that. I've got some coffee here this morning as well. Cheers. Have been missing it. It is a nice little pick-me-up to start the day. And of course, I went to the Smokeout in the Edgewater Speakeasy last Saturday night, courtesy of Tree Huggers Chicago. Finally got to meet Brenda Lee in person. What a lovely lady, and she is doing some great work bringing together all these folks in the cannabis space, finding venues like that, putting together events where everybody can meet each other and you can try out products. I got to try out a lot of cool stuff. There was one group that was doing these free volcano blasts. I haven't had a volcano vaporizer, haven't enjoyed one of those since college. One of my roommates used to have one, and we would hit that bag all the time. So I was able to ingest a bag full of the vape from the volcano, and my God, I can't tell you how stoned I was. Stoned enough to do a late-night GoPuff order for like Cheez-Its and cookies, and I felt absolutely awful the next morning. But man, that night, it was really, really cool. So yeah, I'll definitely be looking for more events from Tree Huggers Chicago in the future, and next time there's one of those, you should definitely try and make it out if you can. On that note, I want to tell you what I have been smoking on. You know, with this tolerance break, my tolerance is still way lower. I did a tea break for about 3 weeks last year in May when I was leading up to the bachelor party before my wedding and all that. And the 3-week break, it did make a difference, but not a significant one. When I went to the Rise dispensary in Mundelein as part of the bachelor party, we obviously spent that Friday night, ingesting lots of cannabis, and my tolerance was lower, but I was still definitely able to take down all the hits and really kind of enjoy myself without reaching a significantly altered state. This time, the 31 days, the roughly 4.5 weeks that I took off for January, this made a significant difference. And even right now, my tolerance is still not back to what it was. And I've been smoking pretty much every day of February, not as frequently as I was before the break. And that's kind of my point. I don't need nearly as much to feel a lot. I mean, last Thursday night, when I first smoked, the night of February 1st, I took 2 hits off what I could find in my grinder and a little bit of keef, and I was just completely out in space. So that was really enjoyable, and now I'm looking forward to what I have in terms of supply. This is going to last me a lot longer because, again, even though I've been smoking more regularly, it's still not nearly as much as I was doing pre-tea break. And I'll tell you, what I've been enjoying is from Cresco Labs. I picked up up a sativa last Friday from the Wrigleyville Sunnyside. This is Double Trouble. I only picked up an eighth because I knew that I wasn't going to need as much as I was. Typically, before I took this tea break, when I went to the dispensary, I wouldn't even bother with anything less than 7 grams, less than a quad. And more often, I was going for a half ounce, like 14 grams. And that would get me through like a week or two. This eighth that I got last Friday has already lasted me the week, and there's still more than half left. So it kind of gives you an idea of how much I can stretch my supply now compared to what I was using. This eighth is marked at about 24% average total cannabinoids in the package. It was harvested October 9th of 2023 and packaged November 28th. So at this point, it's a little over a month since it was packaged, a little over 3 months since the harvest date. And I've really been enjoying this Double Trouble, the sativa, for what it's worth. I found it to be pretty fresh considering, it was harvested 3 months ago, but the packaging kept it soft. It wasn't crumbly. And I'm checking out some notes from CrescoCannabis.com. This Double Trouble strain is an offspring of OGKB and Face Off OG. Top terpenes are caryophyllene, myrcene, and humulene, and they say you experience a spacey, heady, happy, and calming effect upon consuming it. Flavor profile consists of sweet, gingerbread, and cake notes. I definitely get the gingerbread. That was something I noticed upon the first inhale. Not citrusy. You notice that there's no limonene in there, but the caryophyllene I've noticed is a terpene popular in a lot of sativas that I enjoy, so that's a terpene that speaks to me along with myrcene. So the flavor profile of this is nice and sweet, and for me, every day that I've been enjoying this, as I said, spacey and heady. I noticed that on Friday and Saturday, certainly, but the happy and calming is really the thing that I've just been kind of feeling typically, pretty much every time I'm using this. Just now, I just had some breakfast, so I'm kind of on a full stomach. I've got this coffee going, and so for the first time in over a month, I wanted to combine my cannabis and coffee like I like to do in the mornings and share that with you wherever you are, whenever you are. I hope you're enjoying yourself and you're able to indulge a little bit in the pleasures of life, because I'll tell you what, life is short. Take the pleasure where you can find it. Cheers. Oh yeah. Little coffee on the end there. I just love starting the day this way, listener. I can't always do it, but man, when I can, the coffee-cannabis combo is just really one of my favorite places to be. I love it. Speaking of coffee, if you haven't had a chance yet, check out Split Rock Coffee. This is a small business, and they started this coffee company a while back. It's veteran-owned, it's disabled-owned, and they wanted to create some high-quality coffee, and they ship it to people's doors all across the country. You can scroll down to the show description notes and click on the Vouch store link. It'll take you to my show page there, and you can select from a bunch of different Split Rock coffees and Camp Craft cocktails. Coffee, cannabis, and cocktails are definitely some of my favorite substances out there, and I've got some Split Rock coffee on the way myself, and I can't wait to give it a try. I'll talk in more detail once I've sampled it, but I wanted to kind of get some awareness out there for this group. I think what they're doing is good, and I think they're worth your support. So if you're a coffee drinker like me, check out Split Rock Coffee, and if you're in the mood to try making some cocktails at home that arrive with all the ingredients and recipes that you need to do it, you can check out those Camp Craft cocktails as well. I've got some options there on the page in case you're looking to turn up a little this weekend. Listener, my guest today has some very exciting news. There is an excellent product that I just became aware of, and it's perfect for this big game, the Super Bowl coming up this weekend. I know a lot of people, myself included, love to have some buffalo wings or chicken of some variety, along with so many other snacks. We're all loving the holiday that the Super Bowl has become. And, if you listen to this show, obviously you're interested in cannabis products too, and those two worlds worlds are colliding thanks to Cresco Labs and a new partnership that they have, which is bringing a THC-infused buffalo wing sauce to Chicago area dispensaries. You can go out and get these at Sunnyside and at other places right now if you've got a party for the Sunday, or if you're just wanting to kind of up the buzz for yourself as you watch another football game here. And here to talk a little more about the product as well as what brought this on is Jason Erkes, a spokesperson for Cresco Labs. So how did you get started in cannabis?
I started in cannabis when the Illinois medical application process opened up for cultivation facilities, where I worked with a group on their application and really had no intention of working in the industry, but was fascinated by it. And 10 years later, here I am. That's
awesome. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories like that. I've talked with a lot of people on the show. Some of them had experience in cannabis before it became legal. Others did not. But I think it's fantastic. I mean, there's certainly room for everybody in this space. It's very, very exciting, as are the developments of new products. There's so much innovation that's happening in the cannabis space. I love seeing new products week by week. And I've seen a lot from Cresco. I've talked with them on the show in the past before. There's a lot that they're doing very, very well. And it seems that this THC-infused buffalo wing sauce really came out of nowhere. I didn't see any or hear any kind of rumblings, and then all of a sudden it was just boom out there in the market. Can you tell us a little about how this product came about?
Sure. We saw a study a while back that said that Chicagoans in particular like to eat wings more than anything else during the Super Bowl, over burgers, over pizza, over beef sandwiches. So, we knew that we wanted to find a way to kind of insert cannabis and insert our Good News brand, into the Super Bowl conversation. So, we partnered up with a bar here that has award-winning kind of legendary wing sauce, and then infused it and brought the product to market. And we kept it very quiet, where no one heard about it until the day we actually launched. And to say that it's gone viral and picked up a lot of attention would be an understatement. It literally has gotten attention all over the country. And even, we were on a TV show in Italy. The BBC in London picked it up. It's become a global phenomenon.
Oh my God. Yeah, it certainly has. And that's amazing. I mean, you're talking about this all over the world, and I can see why. Obviously, being in Chicago, I know how much we do love wings. That's fantastic. But also just, again, talking about the innovation of these exciting new products related to cannabis. I think it's so cool that it seems like the rest of the world is as fascinated by this as well. You mentioned the partnership that Cresco did with the bar group you talked about. I'm a big fan of theirs, the 50/50 group. I remember when I used to live in Humboldt Park, there was a 50/50 on Division that I'd usually go and watch sports in, and they had some great wings.
That's the one.
Yeah. I love that place. They've always had great wings, especially good other food as well. But I always used to go there on the weekends and just love to take in a game that way. So I just think the choice that Cresco made to partner with that specific group is excellent. Can you talk a little about what the selection process was, how you guys came to the 50/50 group?
Sure. We obviously knew if we wanted to partner with someone with wing sauce, they had to have good wing sauce. So for starters, 50/50's wing sauce, they win the Best Wings in Chicago contest through Eater pretty much every year, and consistently have been recognized as a venue with great wings. So, we reached out. The owner, one of the owners of 50/50, is also in the cannabis industry. So, a big challenge with a collaboration like this is finding someone that's cannabis friendly and a little open-minded to doing a collaboration like this. And, luckily when I pitched the idea, I'm like, hey, what do you think about us infusing your wing sauce with THC and bringing it to market for the Super Bowl? It was a very quick response of let's do it.
That's so great. Yeah, I as you say, I think it makes a lot of sense to me. I'm sure that there are, potential partnerships that maybe don't go as smoothly, or rather that it takes a little more convincing because, as you said, maybe somebody is not in the space, doesn't have the experience. I talk on the show all the time kind of about the lingering stigma and how, normalizing it and all that, we're still very much in this process. And so I I could see how some business owners might take a little more convincing, might not be as ready to go as the 50/50 group. And the fact that they already were in the cannabis space, it just another example of how this partnership, I think, is so perfect and how it came together so smoothly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just say, normalizing, professionalizing the industry is kind of the mission of Cresco Labs. And I think this takes a massive step forward in doing that. People think of cannabis as something you have to smoke or a gummy or a chocolate, with these edible limitations. And I think what this does is really, open people's eyes to the fact that cannabis can be consumed every day just as any regular food is. A distillate, a THC oil can be used for baking, for cooking, for coating, for really the options are endless. So, we certainly hope that as things mature in the industry and things normalize a little more, more collaborations with mainstream brands and cannabis can happen.
Totally. And well said. That is, it is something I feel that Cresco specifically is succeeding at. I've talked with Dana Mason on the show recently. She talked about kind of their price tiering system related to flower. And I had a lot of positive feedback in that interview too. And I think that there's a lot of people who have noticed that good work and they appreciate it from Cresco's side of things. And, when you talk about the barrier to entry, whether it's people, who are somewhat experienced with cannabis, or there's a lot of people, more people who have no experience related to cannabis, but as it gets legalized in different states, now people might be interested or open to exploring it. And edibles really do seem to be among the products that have the lowest barrier to entry. Whether people don't want to smoke, they can't for health reasons, or just would rather explore some other product. Edibles definitely seem to be in this sweet spot. Drinks are becoming popular, as well as, things outside of like the gummies and the chocolates that you were kind of mentioning there too. I think something like this is so perfect. It's perfectly timed. And I think that speaks to why it has gone viral like this, because, not only are people exploring and looking for new food options and, better stuff like this in the cannabis space, but here we are, the Super Bowl's on Sunday, and it's become this infamous holiday of indulgence here in the U.S. and I'm sure elsewhere in the world as well. Lots of people watching, hundreds of millions, I'm sure. And then the consumption that goes along with it, whether here in the States or elsewhere, people have their favorite foods and their favorite drinks. And then the Monday after the Super Bowl has become kind of known as like a hangover Monday because people are celebrating.
Totally.
Right. But now you got this THC infused wing sauce where you can indulge and get into an altered state and enjoy the game that way, but no hangover coming the next day, which some people might be disappointed about if they use that as an excuse not to go to work, I guess. But to not have to go through...
Well, you can still use it as the excuse.
Right. But you could just enjoy the day instead of actually having to go through those symptoms. But I think it's such a great initiative on your part, because I think, like I said, people are looking for this stuff, and to be able to indulge like that and not actually have the hangover, I mean, that's some of the magic of cannabis right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that a lot of people are trying to get away from consuming alcohol during events or moments or things like the Super Bowl, and cannabis is a great alternative to that, to be able to enhance the fun. And, when you're looking at something that's competitive in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs versus the 49ers, and people cheering for both teams at a party, I can't think of anything that helps mellow the crowd and the competition out better than some THC-infused wings.
Absolutely, because we know how it can go when things get a little heated and alcohol gets introduced into the mix. It can definitely be just a little more, it can trend toward violence, unfortunately. But obviously we know cannabis is the opposite. It's definitely going to get people on the same page, and you can just, even if you're cheering for the opposite team, I think you can sit there and still just kind of have a nice vibe with everybody in the room with something like these things. So, Jason, if people are looking right now, still making their Super Bowl plans, and they're, looking to go out and get some of this stuff, where can people find the sauce?
Sure. We launched last Friday at the 4 Sunnyside stores closest to Chicago: Elmwood Park, Wrigleyville, River North, and Buffalo Grove. And it sold out instantly with all the hype about it. We are restocking, rebottling as we speak today, and it will be back in those stores on Friday for the weekend. So people should check out sunnyside.shop, to look at those stores to be able to get their order and, when the weekend hits.
Thank you so much, because I looked for that myself when I saw the story, and I usually go to the Wrigleyville Sunnyside, and I also work near the River North one, and I was looking and I saw that they had sold out, and so I'm really glad to hear you say that, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that you guys are restocking for the weekend. I'll definitely be looking for these at my Sunnysides come Friday.
The restocking was not our intention. This was a limited run, limited time offer. When it's gone, but there's been so much excitement, so much interest in it, we decided to go back and make another batch.
No, I'm so glad. I think that's totally the right call. Is this a limited product for this Super Bowl, or is there plans to kind of, depending on the response, which already seems very positive, is there plans to kind of keep this product on shelves?
The plan right now is just for the Super Bowl. When this batch sells out, it'll sell out, but I'm sure that we'll sit down afterwards and take a look at how it did and what the interest is for a product like this in the future. And make some decisions over whether it's something we'll do annually for the Super Bowl or whether it's something we'll have more often available at our stores. Again, there's a lot of excitement and interest in it.
Yeah, totally. I saw a report, the National Chicken Council, you touched on this earlier, says Americans eat more than 1 billion chicken wings on Super Bowl Sunday. And I think many of those should be coated in this THC buffalo sauce. All of them, if it's up to me, for sure. Jason, thanks for stopping by. Do you have any, who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl? Do you have anybody that you're leaning on the side of?
I'm rooting for the wing sauce.
Rooting for the wing sauce. Well, I think that's going to be a winner. I think it already is, clearly, and that's always fun. No worries of any loss that you have to deal with that. I like it. Jason Erkes, spokesman for Cresco Labs, and a big part of this very exciting batch of the THC-infused buffalo wing sauce that you can find at your Sunnysides. It's the partnership between Good News, the Cresco brand, as well as that 50/50 Sports Group. Jason, thanks so much for stopping by today.
Thanks for having me, Don.
There you have it, listener. I want to thank again my guest, Jason Erkes, spokesman for Cresco Labs. A really great partnership. I mentioned at the top and through the interview, I just think that this makes so much sense, and I'm really glad that Cresco, a hometown company that's made it so big, they are focusing that much on quality, and they're also partnering with other local businesses. Another local success story in the 50/50 group, who's consistently been recognized for their quality in wing sauce and wings. I just think this is one of those examples in life of a beautiful partnership that feels like it could bear some excellent fruit for all of us for a long, long time. Again, I know Jason said that there are no plans to kind of go beyond this, but after this run of success they've already had, the popularity, how viral this has gone, I personally am hoping for more in the future. But either way, if you're interested in trying this, head out to your local Sunnyside as fast as you can, because these things sold out already very quickly earlier this week, and I doubt they're going to last very long this time. And one story I thought was worth bringing to your attention this week. This is from the TexasTribune.org. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General there, sues 5 Texas cities that decriminalized marijuana. The article goes on, voters in Austin, San Marcos, Killeen, Elgin, and Denton approved the policies in 2022. The Attorney General said the ordinances are inconsistent with laws enacted by the Texas legislature. The story is written by Ikram Mohammed. It was published January 31st. I'll share the article. But the gist is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton suing those 5 cities to block their ordinances decriminalizing low-level cannabis possession. In 2022, voters there approved policies that would end arrests and citations for the possession of less than 4 ounces of marijuana. An initiative spearheaded by Ground Game Texas, the progressive group that first launched the proposition in Austin, worked with local organizations in the other 4 cities and succeeded in pushing for similar policies to appear on the ballots. Paxton said in a press release the cities violated state laws and the Texas Constitution concerning marijuana possession and distribution, claiming it to be unlawful for municipalities to adopt ordinances inconsistent with laws enacted by the Texas legislature. The ordinances had high levels of support as well. Austin got an overwhelming 85% of support voters, San Marcos 82%, Elgin 75%, Denton 71%, and Killeen 70% in support. Pretty significant for a vote. And that's all I'll read of the article. I'll share it, and I encourage you to read the rest of it. But I bring this up again because I kind of try and note on the show that as much as we and many around the country are fervently in support of legal cannabis and the federal government decriminalizing it, there are many still in this country who do not agree with that. There are many people who are pushing back hard. And this gets back to the lingering stigma that I continue to talk about on the show. And the best ways to kill that, to finally get rid of it, is to have kids grow up with cannabis totally normalized as it is in many cities, in many states around the country already. And we just have to continue to hope, buy legal, and pay attention to what your representatives are doing concerning these laws. And if the DEA, as I've said before, doesn't soon make an announcement about the rescheduling, they are politicians too, appointed at the behest of the president and the administration. And that is something that we, the American people, have control over. Never forget it. Call your representative, email them. We can contact them and talk about this stuff, and it's worth talking about. That's the only way that this momentum's ever actually going to change anything. But that's all I have time for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Be sure to rate or review the podcast, become a subscriber at the Support the Show link, and follow the show at C-Man Podcast on social media. You can always email me at host@cannabismanpodcast.com as well. Have a great week. I'll be back again next week with another interview, more stories, and perspective on the Cannabis Man Podcast. Bye-bye. Cannabis Man is 100% originally crafted by myself, Don Kleppen. Original theme music written and composed by Yusu Kim, aka Good Son.